Hey, I'm on it. I'm making these videos to answer some questions that pop up every now and then. I'm a Microsoft employee and I work with this very regularly in Azure. And I thought I'd share how I set stuff up, how I do it, what I do, how I think about stuff. This is in no way endorsed by anyone or any company. This is me just talking about stuff in Azure, especially around data. But let's get started. So I'm going to go to Author, Pipelines, New Pipeline, and then I'm going to give it a name, right? So let's call it, I hate this when you click and it doesn't register it, right? So copy 100,000 rows, and spelling rows incorrectly again. And then I will simply say it is from on-premise, right? So I can find it easily again, right? So that's all good. What we need is a copy activity. This is the workhorse of any pipeline, right? So there we go. And I'm simply going to say copy rows from on-prem SQL, right? And ignore the fact that I can't type, right? So what we need to do is set up a source. You'll see I have no sources, and I will add one. So new, this is going to be a SQL source because it's SQL on-premise, so SQL server. Go continue. You'll see this is for the table itself, so SQL server table. So I'm going to say Mo Black Beast because that's my house machine. It's called Mo Black Beast, and then this is going to be SQL underscore. The table I'm looking for is called fact sale. And then there's no link service, so I've got to add a new one. We're going to add the SQL server quickly. So this is going to call Mo Black Beast SQL. All right, easy to get. I'm going to change my integration runtime to the self-hosted integration runtime. And when I drop this down, you'll see this warning popping up to say that your credentials will be stored on the machine hosting the self-hosted integration runtime, and not in Azure at all. So that's an important thing to remember, that with the self-hosted integration runtime, your credentials are stored on the machine itself, unless you put it into the Azure Key Vault. So I'm going to give it a name, Mo Black Beast / SQL 2022. Right, so username is going to be SQL admin user. I'm going to use the local SQL user. I'm going to give it the super secret password. Right, and then I am going to say I've got to give it a name for the database. I'm just going to paste in the database name, and I'm going to say test connection. This should be successful. All right, this is going to connect to the SQL server, make sure that it can connect to it and communicate to it. Right, there we go, create. Busy creating. And then it's going to do its thing. Right, so now we have it created. So we've got a server created. We've got to finish up with setting this table. So we're just going to get fact sale. There we go. We're going to say, okay. And our source is set up. And if you have OCD and you've been staring at the rows that I misspelled, there we go, my pleasure. Right, and then the sync, we need to set up a sync. So I'm going to say new, because we don't have one, right? So we've only got the SQL there. It's a data lake. I'm going to go continue. I'm going to set up a CSV, delimited text. Later on, I'll do a Parquet, right? So we'll see the performance differences between using a CSV and a Parquet. The only problem with the Parquet file is that the self-hosted integration runtime must have Java installed on it, right, to create a Parquet file. With CSV, you don't need anything of that sort, but the Parquet file is going to be smaller in size, but you take a little bit longer to create the file because you've got to compress it and run through all of the stuff, right? So we'll have a look at the performance characteristic of that, but for now it's going to be a CSV, right? So we're going to say data lake underscore CSV, so we know which one this is, right? And then we've got to set up a new link service, This is going to be, I'm just going to call it data lake because I'm going to use it again. It's just going to use the auto resolve integration runtime. I'm going to use the account key. I'm going to select my subscription. I've only got one. And then I'm going to select the storage account name. There's only one, right? So now we're going to say create. And I should have hit test before, but we know it'll work, right? So there we go. I'm going to browse on my file system. I'm just going to use test. It's going to say OK. And then I'm going to say OK again. And I'm going to open this up because on the previous step, if I gave it a path that didn't exist, it would have given me an error, but it doesn't give you an error here. So here I can modify the name, right? So it's data lake CSV. I'm just adding the CSV as the path. And then we have a test.csv file, right, that we're going to do. I'm going to hit save. So it's now saving that data off. And then I can close that. Yeah, that's good. So now we have a source and a sink. And we can just kick this off. So I'm going to hit debug. This is going to take a little bit of time to do this copy. But I'm going to take you through some of the steps that we have, right? So here I'll hit refresh. There you see it popped up. It's in progress. I can hit these glasses when I hover over to go to details, and you'll see it's busy running. I can move this window a little bit around. You'll see that it took 1 second to queue, and the transfer has been running for 7 seconds. So as this is running, it'll update this page for me automatically, right? I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to close it. I could click the refresh button, right? If you're like me and hate waiting, then you're going to hit that refresh button. But this does it kind of by itself for the very first 5 minutes, right? So for the first 5 minutes, about every 5 seconds, it'll update, and you don't need to hit this refresh button. After 5 minutes, you have to hit the refresh button, right? But there isn't a lot of interesting things that are going to happen now. But let me just take you through this first. So data read 1 gig, data written about 210 megs. Rows written 3,600,000 and rows read 3,600,000, right? So peak connections on both sides. We can see them here. So 5 connections on in Azure, 1 connection to the SQL Server. We'll talk about that a little bit, right? So it'll only be 1 parallel copy, and then it should start any moment now. There we go. And then it shows me the throughput, right? So I can see the throughput, and I'm going to cut myself out of the video now while this copies so I can forward it. This is going to take a little bit of time, so let's wait for this to finish, and then we'll talk through some of the steps, right? So don't worry. And ta-da, we're done. 100 million rows. Yay. So took us 18 minutes 41 seconds to move this 100 million rows. Fair amount of time. You can see the data written is 18.874 gigs. If we jump back to the portal, we go home and we go to our storage. I'll go to the container. We use test, we use CSV, and there's our CSV file, 18.02 gigs. We're assuming it's good. So this all went as planned, right? Easy peasy. What if we want to do a Parquet file, right? So let me refresh that. You see it got stuck right there. So if we refresh, it'll show that we're done and succeeded. So 19 minutes and 10 seconds is what we're gonna try and aim to beat, right? So let's create another pipeline. So new pipeline. And I'm gonna say copy 100 million rows. Okay. Alright, so there we go, Parquet. And I'm going to drag in another copy. Alright, so we've got a copy data. Let's just say copy from on-prem. Okay. Right. Source, we're just going to select the one that we have. So this fact cell is going to be exactly the same. We're going to go to the sink. And now we've got to set up a new one because we've got a CSV here. So new data lake. I'm going to say continue. Select OK. Hit continue again. And we're just going to say data lake OK. Alright, to match what we had before. Select the data lake as our link service. We're going to say give me test. Right, there we go. I'm going to say OK. And we're not going to do anything here for now. I'm just going to say OK. Open it back up again. Say OK. And then test.parquet. I called the other one cells, fact.cell, so let's do the same here. Right, so fact.sale.parquet, and that's what we need. So here we go. We're ready to kick this one off as well now. So let's hit debug. It's going to be the same process as earlier. There we go. It's queued. We're just waiting for it to go into progress, and then I'll switch it to the view. So there we go. It's going to run. Once again, I'm going to go out of view while this runs, and then we'll see how long this took. Right. And what do you know? This one failed. Let's have a look at what happened. Right, so I'm going to click that. Column name is invalid. Column name cannot contain these characters. Yay. So this is a problem for us, right? And what we're going to do is we are going to still use this table, but now we do need to do a couple of things. So I'm just quickly grabbing the table definition itself. This is what I have done. So there, I'm just removing the spaces and replacing them with underscores. I'm leaving the ones alone that doesn't have any spaces in them. That'll be fine. So we'll go total, including tax, and these last couple ones. And there we go. So this is now set up. We've got no spaces in here. So what we're simply going to do is we're going to copy this, and then we are going to look at ADF again. So in here, in our source, what we're going to do is we're going to change this to be a query. I'm going to paste that in. You'll see there's the text we have, right? So all fixed up. We can, if we want to be cool, click on preview data. This will go fetch the data from the SQL server, and we'll get the information back. There we go. Everything seems okay. The proof in the pudding is in the eating. So we will run it right now. So there we go. We'll click on debug again. This is going to run it. And refresh. And there we go. It's queued. And refresh again. We want it to be in progress because we want to see that progress. There we go. Bring up the glasses. There we go. So it is running again. Oh, this is going to take a little bit of time. Let's just give it time. Let's just make sure it runs. And it's happily going. And then I'll remove myself from the screen forward so that you don't have to sit and wait for this, but I do. So let's see, just make sure it starts. There we go, it started. Rows written 3.6 million, read 3.6 million. We're all good to go, right? So you'll see now that there's 0 written yet because it's doing it on the self-hosted integration runtime. Awesome. This should work, and I'll be back with you in a sec. All right, so our copy succeeded. Let's create another pipeline. So we're going to say new pipeline, and we are going to say copy 100,000 million rows. Okay, as easy as that, right? We're going to drag in a copy. There's the copy data. Going to give it a name. Copy rows from on-prem. And I'm just going to say parquet. Right, now we're going to select the same source, right? We don't have to change that. So Mo Blackbee SQL fact cells. We've got all of the stuff in here. I'm going to select my sink. I've only got Data Lake CSV, but I want a new one. So this is going to be Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Continue. I'm going to select Parquet. I'm going to say continue. And I'm going to say Data Lake _ Parquet. Now the link service, I'm just going to select the data lake, that's all I need. I'm going to browse to test, there's test, I'm going to say OK. And then we're going to leave that alone. We're going to say OK, we're going to go open. We're going to say OK. And we're going to say sale fact sale .ok. Easy peasy. I'm going to save this. So it goes off and saves it. Right, happy chappy. And we're ready to roll. So this is going to debug. So we're going to wait for this debug to show up here. Right, it'll show up shortly. There it is, queued. I'll refresh again, still queued. Refresh again, still queued. And more queue. There we go. It's in progress. I'm going to open it up and I'm going to view it. Now, interestingly enough, I'm going to forward this because this is going to give us an error. And then I show you how we fix this error. Because there's something interesting on our table. And I'll explain it when we get the error and I fix it. Let's have a look. Anytime today. Right, so it's going to start off and then it's going to fail. And then I'll show you how we're going to fix that. So there we go. It's created it. It's gotten a bunch of rows. If we hit refresh, we'll see a failure very shortly. Come on, you can fail this. Right, so it won't take too long to fail. So you're seeing this is not progressing at all. It'll come back with an error in a second. So in progress, let's give it some time. It's taking longer than I thought to fail. And finally it failed. Alright, so let's close this down. We'll hit refresh, it says failed. We'll click on this and it's going to tell us that bouquet invalid column name. Right, that was wrong. The column name is invalid. Column name cannot contain these characters. Right, so that's a problem. Let's fix it. Right, luckily I've done the work already. And I'm going to switch to the screen. There we go. And you can see here, all I've done is the table contains spaces in the column names, so that doesn't work in Bouquet. I've replaced them all with underscores, so you don't have to sit through that with me. I'm going to copy this, and then we're going to go back to Azure Data Factory. And I'm going to fix this quickly. So we go to the source. We're going to change this to be a query as opposed to a table. I'm just going to paste what I had there. You'll see there it's just a fixing of the column names not to have spaces in it. Right. So once again, hitting debug. This is going to run. It's going to queue, and some more queuing, and queue again, and some more queues until we get in progress. There we go. Now we can click on this, and this is going to run. It's going to be about exactly the same as the CSV, and I'm going to forward through this and wait for it to finish, and then we'll talk about it. I'll catch up with you now. And there we go. It finished successfully this time, right, with the changes. You'll see that it took a little bit less time, so 13 minutes versus our 19 minutes before. So here, when we refresh it, let's just get this number. It's 13 minutes and 21 seconds versus our, if I remember correctly, 9 minutes and 19 minutes and 4 seconds, right? So a little bit faster doing a .k file. I'm not happy yet. I'm sure we can do this better, right? So bear with me while we explore how to do this better, faster.